Hey guys, Board now back with you, and on this video I returned to Ozark. So this is going to be my review of Season 1, Episode 7. The episode is called Nest Box, so full spoilers from the start. And this one picks up with the conflict between Marty's family and with the Snells, and the whole issue over the church, and the fact that they've already put up a cross and already started construction on the church, even though Marty was pressured into not doing that to save his own bacon. So obviously at the start of this one, the Snells have seen that and they're not very happy, so they're putting extra pressure on Marty to talk the preacher and his family, his wife, out of it, and they make some very serious threat. Now again, there is some lighter moments at the start of this, because Marty's all flustered and trying to get hold of Wendy, and he gets really pissed with his sat-nav. He's got a talking, obviously, sat-nav, and at one point the sat-nav saying, what, you're not happy, or were you happy with that? And he's shut the fuck up. And it's one of those great, just very real sort of reactions you might have in that situation where you're getting really under pressure and frustrated, and something as trivial as the sat-nav is going off, and he's just snapping, shut the fuck up. So he's under a lot of pressure at the start of this, so it's up to him really to save his own bacon, to talk the preacher and that out of it. And this is where you've got the really funny line Marty gives about the drainage not quite being the same back during God, Jerusalem and all that, because Mason's so caught up on his whole religion sort of trip and says, Jesus told me to do it, I need to build it for Jesus. And obviously the whole thing with the Snells is they want, if the church is built, then that takes away the need for him to preach on the water and give him sermons there, which means they won't be able to use that to sell drugs and transport drugs, so engaging stuff, because Marty has to try and talk them out of it. And at one point when the preacher isn't listening to him and is ready to go ahead, because Marty comes up with this thing where he puts the kibosh on it and says, we're breaking laws with this, we're breaking drainage laws, which is why he makes the comment about, well, the system was different in Jerusalem during those times. But when Mason's not taking it on board, Marty actually levels with him, and he actually tells the truth about the thing with the Snells, and they're running drugs, and they're threatening his family, and they all go after Mason's family. And they do make that threat earlier in the episode, because Mason's wife is pregnant, and they make the threat to go after her and her baby, cut out the baby. Marty actually he leaves out some of the truth. He doesn't tell them that then he's working for a drug lord and laundering money and stuff, but he obviously does to a point level with them to try and convince them, and Mason's still not listening. So Marty asks if his wife can have a word with them and with Mason, and she does. She really tries to convince him, Mason believing that he was part of a miracle, which is why he would went to religion, sort of brings up, and she's very honest with him. She loves him and everything, but she's honest and just says, well, no, you just got lucky. The guy was just a bad shot, there was no miracle there. But obviously Mason doesn't want to hear it, and it leads to a good scene later with Jacob and with Darlene, where they're having a back and forth, and Mason mentions about how Marty told him about the whole thing with them like peddling drugs on the water, and how he doesn't want to be used like that. Peter Mullin's very good in the scene, and he kind of, oddly, like, it's not like he doesn't come out and make a fray, trying to manipulate the preacher, and he's actually saying things like, well, we're not all as pure as the given snow, and he's trying to like justify them selling drugs. Reluctantly lets them sell drugs. I do everything in my power to preach against drugs. And you just have this ironic sort of term where they both, sort of agree to work with each other, of course, but he actually doesn't mind Mason preaching against, the sins of drugs, because he still gets to sell his drugs. So there's this sort of unholy sort of union where they come to like a compromise. Or they burn down the church anyway. One sort of clunky moment in the episode with Jacob where he actually does do like this speech, and he starts talking about like the history of the town and the history of the snail. So that is a little bit on the clunky side. That's sort of similar to like the speech we've seen with Dale in like the first episode. It's just this sort of monologue that the scene doesn't really need. But apart from that, there's some good stuff with the snails. And Ruth gets close to, well, she's already got close to Wendy, but their bond sort of grows in this because it's the first day at a new school for Jonah. Things don't go to plan for either, and they both kind of rebel on their first day. I mean, Jonah is the most standout scene. Wants him to sign to say he won't use drugs during his like time there. With an insight to some of the stuff that Jonah's been reading online, social media, and some of the ideas he's starting to get about the world, where he actually refuses to sign the thing because he says, well, you can't hold me to that. I mean, sometimes people are forced into a life of drugs, and he actually makes this really funny like argument about how during like the financial crisis, how the drug market actually led to the most fruitful like profit. So he actually like tries to make that argument and is like giving alternative ideas and like refuses to actually sign the thing. So there's an issue where his parents are like called in. And then it's revealed that Charlotte has gone missing, that she hasn't even shown up to her classes, because I think even more than Jonah, she's like put out about going to a new school, and she actually wants to go to Chicago, back to Chicago, like she misses the life in Chicago. Goes to the bus station and is ready to like skive off and go back to like, I think, see her auntie or something in Chicago. And this is where we get a bit more with Ruth and with Wendy. Ruth actually knows where Charlotte would change to get the bus to Chicago, so she helps Wendy out and they drive there. And so again, they're getting sort of closer, and Charlotte decides against getting on the bus, and they actually sort of like hug and make up essentially. But Charlotte's obviously really upset and really missing home. Because Ruth helped her out, Wendy takes her to go and see her father. And there's sort of an irony in that scene, because obviously she's talking to her father about birds and about against them, basically. So little does Wendy know. And there's some quite nice tender scenes where she's talking to Charlotte in the car, and Charlotte says that she worries about ending up with having a relationship like that with her parents. Ruth's father like turns against her and blames her for like not killing Marty. Why is he still in the picture? Things are building with Ruth and Wendy, but there's also stuff we sort of see Wendy become more involved because she's got this job as a letting agent with Sam, and there's been friction with him and his mother over it, but Wendy makes a deal with Sam, like sort of blackmails, because she threatens to walk out and take a job with like a rival, and she get a job as like the financial advisor for his mother. And things are going cozy at first until it's revealed later they know each other. So they're married. So it's revealed that the whole thing, Marty doing dodgy laundering money and stuff like that. So that's when they get into an argument. Randomly, she gets run over, the mother, because they start having a fight over it. She goes outside to put a sign up, and she gets run over, like one of these out of nowhere type moments, which is like, okay, that went somewhere. Wendy's becoming a bit more thinking about these things, a bit more, showing a bit more ingenuity and actually doing stuff herself. So the episode ends with a really powerful and quite tense scene involving Charlotte. The way it goes down is Marty and Wendy are like arguing in the house, and Charlotte has kind of gone off and done her own thing. And so how it plays is she goes diving, which we've seen in previous episodes she has an interest for. We've sort of learned that she did it back home. She was on like the diving team back home at school, so she has a real passion for it. It's something that Charlotte really misses, and it's something which is a good character beat for her, because so far we haven't really got a lot on the two children, especially Charlotte. I think Charlotte has been a bit sort of shortchanged so far, just maybe a typical moody teenager type. So I do like how the background with the diving stuff gives her a little bit something extra, and it's another thing she gets to miss, now in this new life, being in Ozark and whatever. So it makes sense, and she goes out of way to like dive in like the local river, and she wants to keep that up, even though it's not in competition. But the scene actually fooled me, because she goes diving like in the lake, and as it's cutting back and forth between when the argument with the birds and with Charlotte diving, she starts to drown, and it looks like she's gonna die. It looks like she's gonna drown. That's the tension of the scene. And at the very last minute, she puts her foot on the bottom, and she like goes back to the top. She pushes herself back up, and it's obviously after that and talking with Mum I actually realised, she was actually in control of that. It's more to do with her state of mind, her depression, and how she wants to escape. So it's like a metaphor for that, for her wanting to go back home, escape her life, and how she is depressed here, and the parents are arguing again, so that's like got her more down. So yeah, in the end, it's like a twist on the scene where I actually realised that she was contemplating suicide. She was contemplating just letting herself go, and the scene is really well shot, because the style of the scene and the mood of it is then the context is then Charlotte just feels it's so much easier and simpler to let things go and to just sink to the bottom. It's an easy way out is the idea that she's going for, and then obviously at the last minute she sort of comes to her senses and changes her mind and pushes back up. But it's a strong scene, like visually it's a good scene, and I like what they were playing with metaphor wise and stuff. So it's a really strong end to the episode. It's maybe my favourite ending to an episode so far. So, and a good episode of Ozark. I think this might be the best episode so far. So episode 7. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe. As always, you can share me out on social media. and ding the bell on YouTube for notifications. I'll be back with more Ozark soon. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.